Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nasheen Bukhari, bringing you the latest and most exciting entertainment news. In today's episode, we will discuss the diversity in beauty industry, followed by a movie review. But first things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Rapper DaBaby apologizes for HIV comments made at festival. Halima Aden says it is not just about diverse catwalks. Katie Tunstall changes tour dates over hearing problems. Bob Odenkirk, Better Call Saul star, collapses on set of Breaking Bad spin-off. And Matt Damon addresses Simone Biles Olympics exit, saying we're all with her. And now moving to the top story of the day. Although it's 2021, yet entertainment and fashion industry still has some unrealistic beauty standards, especially for women. Halima Aden, the first hijab-wearing supermodel, says it's not just about diverse catwalks. To discuss this further, we are joined by entertainment journalist Jamie Body. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Jamie, Halima Aden was noticed for her apparel in a beauty pageant contest. This was a laudable step by the beauty industry. However, she said it's not just about a diverse catwalk, and Tommy Hilfiger endorsed that during the interview, that he understands why she left the industry. Do you think there is a lack of freedom for women in the beauty industry exclusively?
Completely. And in the 20-minute so documentary on BBC iPlayer, they really dive into her journey in the fashion world and how it kind of over time diluted what her personal brand is. It went against her morals, her religious beliefs. So I think it's an industry when you sometimes have to fit the mold of the product as opposed to staying true to your values. And she did well to stand up for herself and say, actually, no, this isn't who I want to be.
Yes. At one point, we see the industry flaunting the flag of diversity and inclusivity in many movies, seasons, and talk shows. On the other hand, the struggle is real. Why these double standards?
Exactly. I think, as they say in the documentary as well, there's a sense of virtual signaling sometimes when brands or companies think, oh, we need to get diversity. It's Pride Month, so let's get someone from the LGBT community. And it's actually not drilling down to what that company stands for. And sometimes, obviously, therefore, you're the flavor of the month sometimes. You're a flash in the pan, but then they kind of drop you after that season or after that campaign. And I think in the documentary, she hits home really well that don't change yourself, change the game is a line she says in the documentary, which I think is a great way to look at it.
Absolutely. Halima expressed that she left the modeling industry as a good gesture, paving a smooth way for the emerging models, so that other people of color and faith do not have to leave once they enter this profession. Now, how, in your opinion, this can help?
I think now no one wants to be the first to stand up and go against the mold, to say what they really want. So I think by doing this, she's kind of opened up the forum now. Someone has shouted the first words, so they can now feel that their voice is heard. And that there are so many, first of all, so she paved the way for so many more models. So there's a lot more ethnically diverse models in the industry. And then if they all start speaking up against anything that's not right, that voice will be heard. There's a lot more people there. So she's kind of led the ship.
Right. Jamie, we can say Halima Aden left the industry over her differences with the organizers. But this seems to be the case with almost every beauty and entertainment icon who happens to be a woman exclusively. We're not trying to, talk about one gender here. It's about other genders as well. But women are exclusively facing a lot of problems. It's not about their religious beliefs colliding with the authorities. It's about this unrealistic expectation that they have for women exclusively. How would you comment on that?
No, I completely agree. And even if we were to look at the Olympics, so out of fashion, how certain sports, the females wear outfits that you don't have to wear that outfit, but they are skimpier outfits. It sexualizes their sport. So I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. you're not asking for much. You just want equality. And I think in the fashion world, where it's in magazines, it's in film, it's in TV, that is a perfect platform to kind of bridge those boundaries and kind of push females up to the same equivalent as maybe their male counterpart in that campaign film.
Right. Jamie, surprisingly, or I must say ironically, it's mostly the men of the industry who are trying to set the bars for women in entertainment and beauty industry. Now, we're not saying that men cannot have a fashion sense for women or women cannot have, any fashion sense for men. But don't you think this sounds more imposing rather than creating something in the name of beauty?
Yeah, completely. And Halima even says herself, again in that documentary, that the first couple years she did her own makeup, her own styling. And once she released the reins 2 years into her career, that's when people started to take advantage of her. So when she gave away a bit of her power, a bit of control, and it, as you said, it is ironic that it's not always the case, but it's a lot of men who are more senior in that role will kind of have the say when actually, are they the ideal client? Have they asked what the needs of the model are? So yes, I think there definitely needs to be more of a collaboration between the talent, the model, and those who are making the decisions.
Right. And Jamie, I would also like you to comment on something that we're still struggling with. It's not about only facial beauty or apparel, but it also involves shaping the bodies in a specific manner with which women feel accepted, which we cannot call as inclusivity. That is yet another challenge women are facing even in 2021.
Yeah, and I think with fashion as well, you want it to be achievable. You want people to want the products, and it's, if a lady is placed in a position that's not comfortable, she's wearing something she would never wear, it's going to really reflect, I think, in the campaign. And people therefore look at the modeling campaign more as a bit of pop culture, but not actually for the fashion and the hard work that's gone into it. And I think, as Halima also says, diversity doesn't just come in religion, it comes in shape, size, age, gender orientation. There's so much to diversity. And I think you want the modeling industry needs to kind of diversify a lot more, but as we said earlier, not just to tick a box, but to actually, because that's where they want their company and brand to go.
Right. At one end, Jamie, women are struggling for acceptance with their apparels and beliefs in the industry. On the other hand, there is something going parallel, women being criticized for changing their choices of apparel, just like the Voice contestant Manal Ebtisam, who removed her hijab. These two extremes are going side by side for women, which becomes the cause of less focus on their talent and major one on what they wear and what they do not wear. How would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think social media is an amazing thing, but it's also can be a terrible thing. And it becomes a bit of an echo chamber. Once one person picks up on something, they start posting about it on social media, other people start rallying behind them, where quite often you would never say that to that person in real life. And it is really hard because you can't do anything right sometimes. You can't please everyone, sadly. So I think as long as the contestant or the model, the individual is happy with their choices, sadly, if you're in the public eye, you are slightly above the firing line. You're more pushed in front of people. So there's always going to be a backlash. But I think as long as the individual is doing something that ticks their morals, their values, although they might get their feathers ruffled, as long as they can stay true to themselves, hopefully they still feel confident in their decisions.
Right. Jamie, do you think that this is still occurring because of the thin line between acceptance and inclusivity? Do you think there is a confusion between understanding the two and, people are mixing these two together?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. I think, as we were saying slightly earlier, just because you have to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. I think quite often people think, oh yeah, we need diversity, let's pop them in the campaign, let's do this. But actually, why are you doing that? What are the struggles from that background getting there? What is that model story? And it's, yeah, as you said, really integrating why you are including that and why you are widening your bracket, doing it from a genuine place, and not just because you have to be seen to do it, and making sure that's 360. So from the management down to the stylist, photographer, the model, everyone knows what that campaign and what the message is.
Right. Jamie, we have been reading and listening about body positivity and gender inclusivity movements lately, yet there are still a lot of challenges faced in the industry. What steps do you think are needed to be taken in order to normalize diversity and inclusivity?
I think it's kind of, we can't do everything at once, but it really needs to start from the higher ups, whether it's a magazine that is publicising who or what best, but also worst, and unflattering photos. But we've all been on holiday and you reach for the sunscreen or an ice cream, and of course your body's going to contort. You're not going to be six-pack all the time, or you're not going to be like have no cellulite your whole life. So I think it's normalising that it's okay just to be human and that you're not camera ready all the time. So it could be higher up having more filters through their system and what journalists publish. It could be on social media, the models themselves to guard what they see about themselves. You can obviously mute certain accounts or block certain words. I know social media right now is such a hot topic with everything that's going on in the world and fake news. But obviously over time that does need to be policed a bit more.
Right. There is definitely more room for betterment. However, we would also like to take a moment to appreciate the efforts that are being made in order to ease down this path for women to walk on. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think it's, as we say, no one wants to be the first to do this or be the first change maker, but it's kind of celebrating what they did and looking at why they had to be the first and celebrating that as well, and not just focusing on the, oh, it was such a battle, which yes, it really was, but then thinking, right, this individual made it there. Let's celebrate that. Let's talk about why they chose to kind of carve that path and how that can inspire younger generations. And in the documentary, Halima was saying now there's so many more Muslim models in the industry. And even if she only helps one person stand up for themselves, that's such an amazing achievement.
Right. Jamie, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That was Jamie Body. And now moving to other story details of the day. Rapper DaBaby has apologized for his comments about people with HIV on stage at a music festival in the US. He tweeted that his comments were insensitive, adding that he has no intentions on offending anybody before offering his apologies. He said that anybody who has been diagnosed with HIV, they all have the right to be upset. Dua Lipa, whose song Levitating he features on, said that she was surprised and horrified about the comments. KT Tunstall has put her touring plans on hold after developing hearing issues in her right ear. The star previously lost all hearing in her left ear during a tour in 2018. She says she is worried her right side could go the same way. As a result, she's postponing her headline tour and canceling support shows with 80s pop band Hall & Oates. Tunstall said the decision had been extremely difficult, but she had to put her hearing health first. U.S. actor Bob Odenkirk was taken to hospital on Tuesday after reportedly collapsing on the New Mexico set of the Breaking Bad spin-off Better Call Saul. The 58-year-old was shooting a scene when he was taken ill and was immediately attended to by crew members. He was taken by ambulance to a hospital in the Los Angeles area where he's currently receiving treatment. Better Call Saul is currently shooting its 6th and final season, which will be screened in 2022. American actor Matt Damon is standing in support of America's most successful gymnast, Simone Biles, following her withdrawal from the Tokyo Olympics over mental health concerns. In his appearance on The One Show, the Ocean's 11 actor spoke about the news of the 24-year-old exiting after recording the lowest score on the vault of her complete Olympic career. Matt Damon expressed that he has a daughter her age. The amount of pressure that is put on all of these athletes, but particularly her, is more than he thinks he has ever seen anyone put under. That's it from the newsroom. We will be right back with a movie review on the latest release, Old. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It's review time. The latest release, Old, a thriller about a family on a tropical holiday who discovered that the secluded beach where they are relaxing for a few hours is somehow causing them to age rapidly, reducing their entire lives into a single day. To review the movie, we're joined by film journalist Sab Astley. Sebastian, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, M. Night Shyamalan, the master of bizarre, never fails to amaze us. Another mind-bending concept that keeps you hooked. But I would like to know your initial thoughts. That what did you think when you first saw the movie?
So obviously we know that M. Night is, although he's a bit of a divisive figure, he's always bringing something creatively interesting to the table. You'll never sort of find any sort of reused concepts or anything that isn't original in his work. I mean, you can look at The Village, or you can look at Signs. He's made this sort of distinct name for himself in horror storytelling that feels different from anyone else. So my initial thoughts when I saw it were that it was quite a captivating concept. I mean, I've never really heard the idea of a sort of place that makes you feel old and like is actually aging you rapidly. What's interesting is I think this is one of his rare adaptations, because it was originally a French graphic novel, and I think his daughter got it for him for Father's Day. So it must have really struck a chord with him, because he's obviously known for his more original endeavors. But what I found really interesting about this is the kind of how faithful he sticks to the source material and how much he injects his own personal flavor into it. Because for a considerable portion of the first act and leading up to part of the second act, it's mostly faithful to the source material. And what's really interesting is the moment where he begins to divulge, and you can kind of tell that it becomes much more distinctly M. Night. Like, it takes on a more kind of mystery box, twisty, where is this going to go approach.
Right. Talking about the cast, it was not a traditional cast. Most of the faces were new. I would like you to comment on the cast and the way they performed their characters, followed by which of the characters are your most favorite and the least favorite.
Yeah, well, I think it is a very interesting kind of eclectic cast. I mean, you've got Thomasin McKenzie, Alex Wolff, Gail Garcia Bernal, Vicky Krieps. They all work kind of quite well together, especially as a family unit. But I think one of the standouts was definitely Alex Wolff, for sure, because he's able to convey this sort of strange childlike regression as he develops into an adult man. It's kind of unsettling, because he's forced to grow up so quickly, but he's doing these things that he's not really aware of the consequences of. And I think that's the kind of best sort of horror that M. Night injects into this. And it's using Alex's performance where he genuinely has no idea of what he's doing, or like the problems that his actions are causing, because mentally he's still 7, but clearly he's become like this adult man before our eyes. And that's like, it's so terrifying, because it's like, how do you teach someone 14 years of knowledge in like a day? And it's just not going to work, because he's constantly escaping his parents. Like, he's almost outgrowing his parents before our eyes.
Right.
And Gail, sorry.
Please continue, please.
Oh, Gail Garcia Bernal was my personal favorite as well, because he kind of plays Guy as this sort of emotionally broken man who's clearly aware that his marriage is failing, and there's some sort of unseen, unknown illness that we don't know about, but he's just kind of being gradually worn down. So when we get to the beach, it's almost like he's already admitted defeat, and he's just trying to scrabble back any sort of connection with his wife and with his kids, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when his kids are literally aging away from him, and his wife is literally moving away from him in terms of emotion. And it's this fight, not only to kind of secure this life together, but also to sort of make the last moments of their lives together.
Right. Sebastian, we all know that M. Shyamalan released this movie after a very long break. But according to some critics, this movie went way over everyone's head. How would you like to comment on that? Do you agree with this statement?
I think that I can understand what people mean by went over their heads, but I think one of the main problems with Old is that it does have this kind of very unique, interesting, mystical mystery to it. but then M. Night gets trapped up in what M. Night does best, which is kind of the explaining twist. He kind of undoes all this mystery and intrigue that he sets up, and I think that's what's maybe causing it to go over critics' head, is because I think part of the enjoyment of this kind of film is not knowing the answers and coming up with your own answers.
Right.
And then M. Night sort of unravels that by going, here's a clear answer and here's what is actually going on. Because there's multiple moments in the film where we're given potential pieces of information, but they're not necessarily confirmed. So you can go one way or the other. But yeah, I think that's the kind of main undoing of Old, is that it tries to explain itself, when the beauty of it is that it shouldn't explain itself, and it should leave you confused but interested.
Right. Now, there is a little bit of disappointment in the fans, but Sebastian, don't you think that in times like these, where a lot of unnecessary remakes are lined up in Hollywood, these sort of movies like Old, they are the need of the time?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that even though I have my own problems with Old, I still think it's great that we can get original horrors like this. And I still would see another M. Night Shyamalan film, because I still think what he's done here is really interesting and really creatively captivating, and he clearly knows how to cast, and he always brings something new when he directs. And yeah, I think I'm very glad that Old has at least been a box office hit, because it proves to me that people still will go out and see original horror concepts, and they will still take faith in these directors who've been gone for a while. And most of all, they're still just willing to go with something. Like, some people probably might have never even heard of M. Night Shyamalan before, but they're still willing. They're like, okay, this sounds interesting. And I think it proves to studios that if you just have a strong enough concept that stands on its own, people will go to see it because it's interesting. You don't need like a pre-existing fan base or like a big IP like a Marvel to get a lot of money in. You can have something like Old and it will still intrigue people because it's just intriguing at its heart.
Right. Being a film critic, I would like your brutally honest opinion. Where does it incline? Towards positive or the other way around about this movie?
Ultimately, I really wanted to like Old, but it's again, it's because M. Night couldn't resist himself and felt he had to explain everything, and that is where it deviates from the source material so much that I can't get on board with it. Like, Old has this sort of entertaining dumbness to it, or not even dumbness, but chaotic nature to it, where all the characters are kind of pulpy and caricature-esque, and it's really entertaining. But I think the problem is it's in the film's close, where M. Night chooses to take an overtly serious direction and try and explain everything that he's deliberately kept at bay. And that was really disappointing for me, because I thought it was going to end with you had no answers, you had to make your own answers, and he actually had divulged from his sort of old twist-making ways. But it's just the last 20 minutes really upended the film for me, and it really just left me with a sour taste in my mouth, because it just didn't feel necessary. It felt like M. Night just pushed too far. And I think if it had ended precisely, without giving it away, I think if it had ended precisely where it feels like it's going to end, it would have been a lot stronger of an ending.
Right, right. Sebastian, it was great discussing this movie with you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was Sab Astley reviewing the latest release, Old. And that is it from today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.